That same education went on Vietnam veterans too. Our next speaker might mention something about that. In 1965, when Leon Crowe graduated from Purdue University in agriculture education, the average price of a new car was $2,650. Gasoline cost 31 cents. A new home cost $13,600. Leon, there'd not be much real estate commission on that sale, would there? The average income per year was $6,900. Ground beef cost 45 cents. The Dow Jones Industrial Average closed the year at 969. Postage cost 5 cents. Our 1965 graduate and era speaker, Mr. Leon Crowe. But I'm on.
I tell you what, following Bill McVeigh and looking out here and seeing Orr Callahan and all the Deans and Coleman Harris, I feel like a half-breed hound at a pedigree dog show. And thank goodness he didn't tell the story about my veterans class, because I want to tell it. I was teaching a veterans class one evening in my ag room. Mr. Gottschalk came to visit that afternoon. I invited him to stay. He did. And to start that night's class, I introduced him as a gentleman from the VA was there to talk to them about making sure they were okay and getting along in the program and all. We took a break. Not a single one of them spoke to Dan. Doc Klaus, I don't know if you'll remember this or not, but show you, I didn't have a real glorious start in life sometimes. I had the greatest parents in the world, but it was a small farm in southern Indiana, and we just never left that small farm. And as a freshman at Purdue, between my freshman and sophomore years, Dr. Klaus showed up in our barnyard driving a big fancy vehicle with Purdue University written on the side of it. Dad comes out of the barn and said, Doc says, are you raised, Dad? Dad said, no. Doc gets in the car and starts to leave, and Dad chases him down. He says, you mean Leon? Well, see, my first name is Raymond. And when I got to this big college, all they wanted was my last name and my first name. They didn't want my middle name, Leon. So I went through as Ray Crowe, and when he came to visit, Dad wouldn't even claim me. Well, I, like a lot of ag teachers, started in junior high with Mr. Vault, who, besides my dad and my father-in-law, probably had the greatest influence on my life. And I sat in the 7th grade class, and I always remember, Bill, he said, you got to have goals, you got to have something to strive for, and we had to write a paper on what we wanted to be. I wanted to be an ag teacher. So I started in '57. There's my freshman ag notebook from Orleans High School in 1957. Yes, I had an SAE program. And there's the one that I guess he used to fill the V80 out with. I started in '65 a little school called Parksburg. And it's in pretty good shape because Don Pennington taught there before I did. So everything was in good shape. Little township school, and I had a whopping 21 ag students. But I had a 12-month contract for 21 students in one township. A week before school started, the principal calls me out to his house. He says, I got a problem you can help me with. I said, what's that? He says, I can't find a chemistry teacher, but I see that you have a minor in chemistry. I said, yes, sir. He said, would you mind doing it? how do you say no? I began teaching. So not only did I teach ag, but I also had that opportunity of teaching chemistry. We also were very active in 4-H. I had 2 4-H clubs, and that was part of teaching ag. I was on the job about a week. One of the parents calls me up, and he says, when are you going to come by and clip my son's calf for the fair? I had never clipped a calf in my life. But I did 32 of them that next 2 weeks. And I'll have you know that I clipped the grand champion at the fair. Now, I made a whopping $7,000 that first year. And Dan, gas was 31, 32 cents a gallon, but I burned so much of it, he gave me a 5-cent discount. And $7,000 was quite a bit of money. My wife and I rented a very nice stone 3-bedroom, 2-bath home for $60 a month. We only got paid once a month, and December had 5 weeks. That was a long time. But during all that time, we saw a lot of changes in the 60s and the 70s. How did we haul our students around? Our personal vehicles. You all did. They paid me 7 cents a mile to do it. We even hauled them to Kansas City in the family car. Now I remember, I believe it was Everett McCauley. Kenny, was that right? Tore his car up and was in a wreck out there in Kansas City. He had to buy a new vehicle to haul the kids home. So his wife didn't even get to ride in it when it was new. The kids had already been there. We finally had so many students that we had to learn to drive school buses. And then, of course, we got to the school vans, and then we figured they were so dangerous. After we drove them all our life, we went to the minibuses. Discipline changed for us ag teachers. I started, and the paddle was on the desk. And we used it. We knew 2 things. 1, it was going to hurt. And 2, the student was going to get it again when he got home. Those of you my age know that, when I got in trouble at school, Dad never did ask my side. I guess I didn't have one. We gave 2 grades out on the grade cards back then. Some of you remember. One was your course grade, and the other one was a citizenship grade. And my dad always looked at that citizenship grade first. Dress has changed a lot in those 20, 30 years, especially in the 40 years I taught. In 40 years, I never entered a classroom without one of these around my neck. I remember the superintendent was the first one to evaluate me as a teacher. The only negative thing he had on the report, I didn't have a jacket on. I had a necktie, but I didn't have a suit or a sports coat. And that was marked down. I had to have it. Dress for teachers changed. I remember the lady that came to school with the first pantsuit on. She got called to the office. Some of these slides, and I don't know where you got it. I don't remember having that much hair. But I sure remember that polyester clothing. You gentlemen remember that? In the welding booth? What started like that soon went in. Oh yeah, what a deal. Send students to the restroom to put their shirt tails in. They had to have belts on. And then you hope and prayed later on in life that the pants didn't fall off. It changed dramatically. We used blackboards and more blackboards. I don't know how much chalk I went through in life. We always wrote everything on the chalkboard. We had no copying machines. You had those duplicators. Had that one page in between the carbon paper and all, and you type it up and realize you left that paper in there. If you were real good, you could get about 25, 30 copies off the back of that. That's just the way it was. You wrote the test questions on the chalkboard. Or you read them out loud while they wrote the answers down. Then heaven forbid you traded papers and had the students grade each other's paper. Then read the roll call and they'd tell you what the other kid made. Boy, that'd go over good today. We all had the SAE programs. We all remember those V80s. I remember the state meeting when the gentleman stood up and said, "No more," and tore it up. We cheered. But you know, after that, we got a little lax in life. We sort of slowed down a little bit. And a couple of us thought we'd gone a little bit too far being lax. So we filled out a Who's Your Farmer application for this individual. Gib Rail, once the scores came in, scored too high. He not only would have won the district star, but he was heading towards the state. And we had to pull it out of the competition right fast because Gib Rail spelled backwards is big liar. Now I feel better. They say confession is good for the soul. Would the other individual like to do likewise? We did sweat a while over that one, I'll tell you that, but we got the point across. We had no cell phones, but in the 70s we got the CBs. And all those ag teachers had handles. You got the bird here. I go through over in Runyon's area, the Chrome Dome. Needless to say, he was bald-headed. We even published a list of all the handles. You drive around the state of Indiana, if you was an ag teacher, get close to a little town, you'd holler out for him, and he'd usually answer. That was a good old days. Audio visuals changed during that time, too. I started with the great black and white film strips. Boy, we loved those things. Then we got the slides. And then Ora and Bernard and the boys at the Farm Bureau and all, they helped us with the 16 millimeter films. How many of you guys remember those? Hey, that was a great, took us a day every summer to order our films for next year. Then the day we were supposed to get it, some dumb ag teacher never returned his from the time he had it. And we had to scramble for something to teach. There were a couple we had to have. There was one on corn picker safety we loved. The old pull tie. The guy got his arm caught down in it, got his leg caught down in it. Dale Butcher convinced his students that the prisoners, they made them do that. That was part of the release program. And then there's another one, and if you remember, finish the title for me. Gotta go, gotta go, gotta go. Joe was worldwide. We had to have him. But now those audio visuals are on the way out, naturally, and we've gone to the computers and all of that apparatus. It's changed tremendously. National conventions back in those days. Indiana stayed at one hotel. We rented a whole hotel out there by the sports complex. Took our own students. And those were great days. Jimmy Carter, president, spoke to us. George Bush was there. Lee Iacocca was there. That was a high. I took students, I've talked to them since that went during those days, and they could still name those speakers. And some of them I've forgotten, of course. There was no laser light shows, but we had a great time. How were we able to adapt to all those changes? Very easy. It's our professional organization, the IVATA, the NVATA, that we had to rely on at that time. We were a brotherhood. When we needed something, we helped each other. We made it happen. Some of us got tired of going to Camp Limberlost or to Turkey Run State Park or down to Lincoln State Park. So what did we do? We bought a farm and built us a camp. Ag teachers running chainsaws, bulldozers. Never ran one in my life till I got down there. I still remember how we painted that lodge for the first time, up high on the end. Gerald Jackson drove the tractor and I sat in the bucket up above, and he raised me up. Now that's having faith in your fellow ag teachers. Besides showing you the lack of intelligence of a few of us. We went to fall workshop, summer workshop. We taught each other. Kenny Brashford taught a session on discipline I'll never forget. Bill McVeigh taught us about record keeping. Gerald Jackson taught me how to do the tractor troubleshooting contest. We were willing to share and help each other until it came contest time. Then it was every person for themselves. That's the way it was. We had fun together. I was lucky enough to serve the association twice as state president, but my biggest duty was passing out door prizes. I don't know why I always got that opportunity, but I loved it. And we had a good time. Each district was supposed to bring a gift, and we'd chip in. Ag teachers, our district would maybe have a drill or something they could use in the shop. We had one gentleman in the state, won't mention names, but he always brought 24 eggs. That was his gift, door prize. So we were at the downtown Hilton, and I was in charge of the door prizes. So as you came in, I'd give you a ticket, and I'd take the other ticket and put it in the box. Until I gave him his, and I stuck his ticket in my pocket. Well, outside the convention area was Gasoline Alley, the bar. And there was a young lady in there that probably wasn't dressed appropriately enough to go into a classroom, but I convinced her to help me out. So when it got time for the door prize, I brought Miss Kitty in and a key to the hotel room. And in the meantime, I'd slipped the ticket to old Si Deeb. And Si says, tonight's winner is. Now, I'll never forget the gentleman. If you were there, you'll remember. All he did was stand up and said, "Oh my God, that's me." And you won't remember the rest of this story. This honestly happened. Bill McVeigh had just won a bottle of wine. And he says, "Anybody want to trade with me?" Bill McVeigh, after we built the FFA camp, we were real proud of it down there, and still are. When first campers camping in tents and all, some of them evidently had started carving into some trees. And I think Larry Warfel was state exec secretary at the time. He lined them all over at the flagpole, which was just a wooden tree stump with a flag on it. And he was reading them the riot act about defacing the campsite. Over on the point of the lake, some of us ag teachers were sitting and telling stories. Jingles Jackson said that, of course, he came from the same county I did. We knew each other a long time. But we used to do pole bending. Well, these northern ag teachers didn't know what that was. Well, we explained you just find you a 4 or 5 inch sapling, you climb up it and swing back and forth and bend it to the ground. Oh, well, that was in my younger days. So I proceeded to show them how to do it. I shimmied up the pole, got her going pretty good, and all of a sudden, snap. I fell to the ground and I was hurt. The other ag teachers around us was laughing, and every camper that was being chewed out for tearing up the trees was looking at us. But we were ag teachers, and we loved it. We were a family. We were a professional organization. I was just a small ag teacher in a small town in southern Indiana. Show you how type of families we were. I lost my mom and dad the same day. And in the visitation at that little funeral home, I had 3 national ag teacher presidents, 10 present, past, or future state ag teacher presidents, several ag teachers from around the state. There were flowers there from Larry Case and Coleman Harris from the national office, from the state staff, from the state FFA officers, because they were, they are, and they'll always be my family. You see, us Boilermakers and us Aggies, us ag teachers, we were teachers of vocational agriculture by choice and not by chance. We dedicated our lives to its development, to rural America, and to the advancement of its people. Long live ag education.